and we work with a lot of different people in order to provide you guys with the right resources and information. And it's basically a networking family. And the pillar that we as the professional development committee focus on is the nurture pillar, which we'll see we work a lot with trainee accountants. And this is the phase in your career where you are basically being nurtured in order to becoming the best possible version of an African woman CASA that you can be. So that's basically our role. You'll see throughout the year, we'll have a lot of different events and conferences, etc., to just steer you in the right direction and guide you along and nurture you up until you qualify. And obviously, the AWCA as a whole has other pillars as well. So once you qualify, there are other forums that you can get involved in. So we're quite a tight-knit family. We work closely with SAICA as well. And you can always feel free to reach out to us if you're not a member yet. You can find us on LinkedIn, etc. I think there's a few people from the Professional Development Committee that are here today. If you look at the participants, there's Nancy, there's Pume, there's Bawinile, and I think Babalo is here as well. So you can always reach out to us if you want to find out more about the AWCA and also to get involved and make sure that you don't miss out on any of our programs. And then coming to the career liftoff. So this is the second annual career liftoff. And obviously because of COVID and everything that's happening in the world, we've had to go from a physical event to online, but that shouldn't stop us from being able to give you what we desire for you and the knowledge and the resources that we want to give to you. So this year we're running a series of 4 events. The first one was on Tuesday, and we were basically talking to the question of, should you stay or should you leave your audit firm after you finish your articles? And we had quite a fruitful conversation on Tuesday, and that recording will be available once the series is over. So today is part 2, and we'll be talking about putting your best foot forward, your CVs and what to expect when you guys actually start looking for jobs and roles when you qualify as a CASA. So we're very excited about that as well. And we have a few speakers that we hope will make a meaningful contribution to your knowledge and to your journey. And then on Tuesday, we start speaking to specific jobs and careers that you might be able to pursue once you've qualified. So on Tuesday, we're looking at academia, technical accounting, and finance and commerce. And then on Thursday, our last session, we'll be looking at the public sector and also investment banking. So we've tried to give you as much as we can in terms of the resources and the information that's out there. And hopefully you'll join us for part 3 and part 4 next week as well. Coming back to today, so the running order of things is that we have 3 speakers. The first speaker being Mr. Mawande Molosi, who is a CV writing specialist. So we try to get the best so that we can give you the best. So he's a CV writing specialist and also owns an interview coaching company. And he'll be basically telling you the do's and don'ts of your CV, what should be in there, what should not be in there, how to make your CV stand out, etc. And that's very important because as a person who's had to look at CVs and hire as well, and getting CVs from newly qualified CAs, I've sometimes asked myself, like, what is going on? Is this a person that has been working for 3 years, etc.? So we felt that there was a need and there was a gap there in terms of how you guys actually present yourself, present your CVs, etc. And then our second speaker is Mr. Bongumusa Sangweni, who is an HR professional, and he's very experienced in terms of what do companies actually look for when they are hiring. What is the process? How can you make sure that your CV stands out in that process? How can you make sure that the company actually notices you and actually picks you for a particular role? So that's also quite an important perspective in terms of what are people actually looking for when someone is hiring a newly qualified CA or an experienced CA. What is it exactly that they're looking for? And then lastly, we have Ntsabadi from SAICA. So Ntsabadi is here to speak to us about a very important topic right now, which is around the SAICA social media policy. So a lot of us are online, a lot of us have accounts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we, if you didn't know already, but SAICA does have a social media policy with some guidelines in terms of what you should or should not do and what links you to SAICA and what are the lines basically that you shouldn't be crossing. So if you didn't know that SAICA has a social media policy, I think now you do, and hopefully he'll share some insights in terms of what the policy entails and what direction it actually points you towards. And then obviously we'll also take questions. So what's going to happen is that each of our speakers are actually going to speak, and when they're done, you can post your questions in the chat box, and then we'll take the questions afterwards, but only after they're done with their own presentations. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Mawande. Mawande, please take the floor on the screen. Z, can you help me unmute Mawande? Are you winning?
I've lost him.
There we go.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Mawande, welcome.
I don't know. I think it was a connection problem on my side, or because I couldn't hear a thing that you were saying. Talent.
Yes, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. We lost connection there for a good couple of minutes, so I couldn't hear a thing.
Okay, I was basically just introducing the speakers and giving the rundown for today, but then feel free to start when you're ready. I think it's fine now.
Can I start now?
Yes.
Oh, okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come, obviously, and share my expertise on CV writing. Just a bit about myself. I started my recruitment journey 2014, and I worked for a couple of agencies for the UK market, South African market, focusing in finance, oil and gas, as well as the construction sector as well. So then we also started a company called Mawa. Started it 2 years ago, full time. We were doing, CV writing. We're doing interview coaching as well. And the reason why we basically started the company was because of the background in the recruitment and getting a lot of CVs from candidates. And you'd find that candidates would be sending CVs that are not really attractive. So hence why we decided, you know what, let us start a company where we're going to be assisting in CV writing. We were doing it part-time for almost 5 years. We were doing it part-time, but now last year we then decided to do it just full-time and be assisting candidates with CVs, and also obviously on LinkedIn, just to give tips to candidates, professionals that are looking to improve their CVs, and obviously how to attract recruiters as well as hiring managers. And also some of the awards that I've got this year, I got nominated to be part of a team of 150 HR professionals globally. These were people that were selected because of their influence on LinkedIn, also on Twitter, and on my side, because of my influence on LinkedIn. Now, I think I'm sitting on 28,500 followers on LinkedIn. So that's where I'm basically sharing a lot of my expertise on what do you need to prepare for, even on interviews. Why do they ask certain questions from a hiring perspective? And also this year, I've also finished my ebook. It's a short PDF series where I'm sharing all the tips on what you need to have on your CV, also on in terms of a cover letter, what do you need to have on a cover letter, and obviously when you're sending someone an email, how you should structure an email. So that is all in the PDF that I did this year. It's a short ebook. So I'm also going to be giving it to all of you guys. If you're interested in the book, I'm going to be sending it to all of you guys for free. So obviously, I want us to just go straight to it. I'm just going to go straight on the structure of a CV, the most important parts of a CV. I just need a note to say you guys are with me, or just a heads up if you guys are still with me. Can you hear me?
All is good.
All right, awesome. So I'm just going to go straight to it. Just going to try to bring it a bit closer. All right, awesome. So when you're going online, there's obviously hundreds of CVs, hundreds of CV formats that you'll find. And I always say a CV doesn't get you a job. However, a CV can cost you a job. All right, so I'm just going to start with the first page, right? So when you're starting with your first page, obviously your name. So I always advise that do away with, back in the days, we used to have the first page used to be curriculum vitae of Mawande or talent, whatever. So I've always advised that you should just take that page away and just go straight to it. The first page should be one of your selling points in your CV. So usually a CV should be between 1 to 3 page. But I always say a one page CV is for students or for recent graduates who don't have much experience. But I always advise at least 2 to 3 pages. It's fine. But for graduates, just 1 page, it's fine. It should not be too much in your CV. Then just under your name and surname, I call it identifier. So your identifier is your position. So let's say, for instance, auditor. So we'll say auditor because when a recruiter opens up your CV, they don't actually read your CV. We do what's called scanning. So we scan through your CV. So immediately when I open up your CV, I should be able to see what is your skill. So when a recruiter is opening up this CV, they'll obviously see, okay, this person is an auditor immediately. Then you go on your personal details. Okay, so on personal details, obviously you should have your contact numbers, contact details, your contact numbers, your email address. You should have your email address. You should have your EE, employment equity, because we are in South Africa. So I know with other formats in other countries, I know it's not important to have a gender specified, but in South Africa, it's very important to specify male or female, especially the EE. It's a big thing in South Africa. And then obviously, if you've got a license, also adding your license as well. Right, so it's also important to have your email. What I've seen, a lot of candidates would not even include their emails. And it's always shocking to me to find that people are not even adding that on their email. I mean, on their personal details. And obviously, if you have a LinkedIn, it's also important to have your link as well under the personal details section. So once that section is done, you're going to open up a section for executive summary. Okay. So by far, I always say an executive summary section is very important because it's a short description so that the person would know who you are and the important points to have in your executive summary. Obviously, it should be at least three lines. I always say, don't make it too long. Just make it at least 3 lines, 3 to 4 lines. And what you should have there, I should be able to know who you are in terms of your position. Can say an auditor with 3 years experience or 2 years experience. Also mention your industry that you're in, right? It's also very important. So under executive summary, your title should be there. Your years of experience should be there, as well as your industry. So also obviously ensure that it's 3 to 4 lines. You want to keep it very short because you want the person to know that you've got how many years of experience and to know what sectors that you've been in. FMCG, oil and gas, or construction in your accounting. Then once that section is done, I'm obviously going to send you guys a template as well. So I'm just going to send you a template once this is all done. So once the section for your executive summary is done, then you open up another very important section, which is called the core competency. So for me, this is by far the most important section in your first page, right? So your core competency is where your keywords are here. So for instance, if you are an auditor, you'd want the person to know that you've done auditing. You want the person to know that you obviously accounts payable. So these are keywords. So when a recruiter is looking at a CV, they're looking at a job spec. So on a job spec, there will obviously be points, keywords such as accounts payable, keywords such as auditing, keywords such as maybe purchasing, keywords such as maybe communication. So you want in your core competency to show all of these. They must show so that when they are tracking, when you're sending your CV through the application tracking system, it's able to track your CV. It's able to detect your CV. And also just on the CV as well, just before I forget, on the first page, you want to take out your picture, because I've seen a lot of candidates would have a picture on their first page. I know it looks nice when you're having a picture, but because of the ATS system, the application tracking system, it shows the CV as a picture. So your CV doesn't get a chance to be read by the hiring manager. So I don't know if other guys are also familiar with the application tracking system. It's a system that is used by companies where before the HR is receiving the CV, it kicks out all of the CVs that don't really match or that don't have anything to do with the skill itself. So it's very important that you don't have any tables on your CV. Also, you don't want to have any pictures in your CV as well. So this is by far the most important part of your CV, the core competency section. And when this part is done, then you add a section for your key achievements. So key achievements are very important in your CV because it shows that you have achieved something within the company that you were working for. So for instance, key achievements, it shows that you've maybe saved cost for a company, cost savings, because every company wants people that are going to save cost for the company. Maybe you've increased revenue. So you think of a time where you increased revenue in a company that you worked for, or maybe even when you are doing your training, what did you do to contribute to the company? So you want to also have your key achievements. Even on your, while you were studying in your undergrad, you need to showcase maybe you were on the dean's list, or maybe you got a cum laude. You need to showcase that on your key achievement, because this is what separates you from other candidates, right? The key achievements. This is what the recruiters always look for. So once this section is done, then you've got a choice to start with your education or your experience. So what I always say, between education and experience, if you don't have much experience, you're still a trainee, what's important is you can start with your education. And this is if you're still a trainee, you're still a entry level, candidate. You can start with your education. And when you're starting with your education, always start with your recent one. Start with your recent qualification, the one that you just finished, and then end off with your matric. So always start with your recent one, recent qualification. And it's very important to always start with your latest one, and then your experience. Once the education is done, you go straight to your experience. So with regards to experience, it's very important with regards to bullet points, because when recruiters are looking at your CV, they're not actually reading your CV. They are just scanning through your CV. So don't write in paragraphs. So paragraphs are a big no. Make sure that you don't write in paragraphs. Instead, you have bullet points. Make bullet points. And I always say at least have a minimum of 3 bullet points. Have at least a minimum of 3 bullet points, up to a maximum of not more than 8. At least 8 bullet points, that is your maximum. You should not be having 15 bullet points on your duties, right? And also what's important with regards to your duties, always be seen as an achiever instead of a doer. For instance, you can use keywords such as you spearheaded a team, you directed a team, or whatever the case may be, but always try to showcase your experience as someone who is an achiever, someone who does things happen within a company. So always keep that in mind whenever you are listing your duties in your experience. So very important, three bullet points, that's your minimum. Maximum of 8 bullet points. Don't make it more than 15, or else you're going to have more than 3 pages. You want to keep it at least to a maximum of 3 pages. So once this section is done of your experience, you then go to a section of software packages, right? So with regards to software packages, you obviously will have your Microsoft Office. Your Microsoft Office. If you've got maybe Sage, put your Sage. You've got your Pastel. Always have your accounting systems and packages. Put them there. If you do have them, add them there as well. They're very important. Right, then a section which I'm also going to be discussing is, are hobbies important in your CV? So are hobbies important or not? Or are they just a waste of time? So with regards to hobbies, my opinion as a recruiter, so if I'm opening up your CV, I'm viewing your CV, I don't even go to your hobbies, because the hobbies would be maybe reading, I read, I swim. Those hobbies don't have anything to do with your skill, right? So in the selection process, the duties, I mean, the hobbies are really not a must to have. I look at them as a waste of space. They're just wasting space, because reading or writing, unless the duties have to do with, maybe you like to calculate, you like using calculator, and they have to do with your skill, then it's fine. But in most cases, hobbies, we don't even look at them as recruiters. We don't even go to that section. Okay. And then another important section that I want to talk about as well is references. So references, should you add them on your CV or shouldn't you add them on your CV? Also with that one, it's also optional because what's important there is once a recruiter phones you, after the conversation, after the telephonic interview, they will obviously request your references. So they will request your references. So whether you've got them or you don't have them, they will still request them. So it's also optional to have them or not to have them. But here's an important point with regards to references. Always make sure that you phone your references. Phone your references before you can actually give it to a hiring manager or to a recruiter. Make sure you phone them, because what we found is that a lot of candidates tend to get rejected because of the bad references that they're given that are given on their behalf. So sometimes you find that they were not getting along with that supervisor or that manager. So it's always very important that you touch base and find out if whether you're still in good terms, because I'm telling you, you might not get your job because of that. So hence why I always say, just be on the safe side. Before they get phoned, you phone them first, just to give them heads up, to say that, hey, someone is gonna give you a call from this company, right? So that's also a very important part we need to cover. So it's optional. And another important part, which I think is very important, is a gap on your CV. So, sometimes you find that somebody would have a 2-year gap, where there's a 2-year gap which is not explained. And that can actually even cost you with regards to your job, because some HR managers would be asking themselves, what were you doing in that 2 years? Or sometimes they would look at it as if you were someone who's not really a motivated person. You are someone who's just complacent, who's not really a person who they can take on in their company that can add value. So whenever you've got a gap on your CV, make sure that you explain. You can say maybe if you took a year gap, or maybe you took a sabbatical for a year or on holiday, always explain. So always explain the gap. Can write maybe sabbatical, whatever the case may be, or maybe you were raising kids. As long as you explain it, it's very important, so that they are aware that you were doing something in that space where you were not doing anything. And also, just to go back on the experience, another important part on experience, you also you have to have your months and years. So for instance, you worked in January 2017 to February 2020. So what we found is that a lot of candidates tend to just write the year only. They tend to just write the year only and forget the months. So it's very important to specify exactly which month you started, as well as which month you ended as well. And also another important part with regards to experience is always explain the reason for leaving. Always explain the reason for leaving. Always explain that, because sometimes it can be seen as you are someone who's doing, who's job hopping, if they're seeing you just leaving companies without a valid reason. Or sometimes you were having contracts. Maybe you spend a year doing that job, you spend maybe 2 years doing another job in another company, you spend 3 years, you spend 2 years in another company. So always make sure that you specify that you are doing a contract with this role, or you were retrenched in that role, so that they will not see you as someone who is not stable, because it costs money to hire people. So hence why companies really make sure that when they're bringing you on board, they know that you are going to stay. You are not going to just be there for a year or a couple of months and then you leave the job. So that's very important to specify why you left the company. Okay. Okay, I think also what's important, just going back to the key don'ts, as I mentioned earlier on, key don'ts, okay. So, because there is something called ATS, so the application tracking system. So when you're sending I've been working on an ATS system since 2015. So what we found is that a lot of candidates tend to have their CVs not to even reach the HR manager or the recruiter, simply because of how they've done their CV, the structure of the CV. So make sure that you don't have a picture, as I mentioned earlier on. You take out a picture, you take out tables. Because what these do is, so when the CV gets into the application tracking system, it shows as a picture. It shows as a picture. So it gets seen as a picture, so therefore they can't pick it up. So that's very important. Don't put a picture, don't put a table, rather be on the safe side. You'd rather want to be on the safe side. And also another big don't, I think I also mentioned it earlier on, is don't just write a paragraph. So a paragraph is a big no. So for instance, you listing you having your duties in just, imagine having to read these 5 lines. The person has added all of their duties in these 5 lines. So a recruiter doesn't read a CV. They're just scanning through a CV. So they don't have time to read that. They don't have time to read that. However, if your CV is in bullet points, if it's in bullet points, they can definitely be able to see, okay, this person did payroll, this person did accounts payable, this person did policy or purchasing. So it becomes very clear for the person. And also just to conclude, also just on the CV, nothing has changed with regards to CV writing. Nothing has changed. It's just they've just added things like the application tracking system, which ensures that the HR manager is not getting CVs that are not aligned to the position. And yeah, that's basically it about the CV. I'll also be sending you guys a template that I've done, which I think can also help you guys with regards to a CV. Now, before I move on to LinkedIn, why is LinkedIn important for you as a job seeker? So LinkedIn is a very powerful way to network with HR recruiters as well as hiring managers. But before I go into LinkedIn as well as agencies, I just want to have 1 or 2 of you guys to ask any question relating to CV writing. Any question that you may have, or any points you'd want me to also just elaborate on with regards to CV writing, just before I continue on LinkedIn and agencies, should you have agencies or not.
Okay, currently there aren't any questions in the chat box, but if anything comes in, then I'll just quickly read them.
Okay, I think I just saw something about cover there on message. I just saw a message there. I think the person maybe was asking, should they include a cover or, but the message just disappeared there as I was reading. Are you able to see the message, Talent?
Oh, here we go. It says, hi, Mawande from Nobantu. What are your personal thoughts about including a cover letter? Do you think it is necessary?
For someone who's still junior, you can add a cover letter. Make a separate attachment. Have your CV and then make a separate attachment. And also in your body of your email, just also mention it there as well. I will also be sending you a PDF series, which is also going to be just giving you guys advice on what you should be adding on the email, the body of the email, so that you ensure that the person who's going to be receiving your email will have an interest in reading your going through your CV or any attachment that you have. So I'll also send you guys that. But yeah, you can attach your cover letter as well. It's also important. Okay.
Okay. I saw Temegile had raised his or her hand, and I've just asked them to type the question in the chat box, but I think you can continue in the meantime, just in the interest of time as well.
Okay, awesome. I'm just gonna be very quick on LinkedIn. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is also a job board. So most of hiring happens on LinkedIn. So what's important about LinkedIn is for you to revamp your LinkedIn. Also, just underneath your name on LinkedIn, same as with your CV, you add your position. So you write your position just underneath your name. So Mawande, so underneath your name, you write your position. What you should not be doing on LinkedIn, don't write there seeking a job or looking for a job. Or if you are still unemployed, don't write managing director, any of those titles. Try to avoid that. Just instead write your position, because when we are searching for an auditor, your name will be picked up if you written your title just underneath your name there, instead of you writing career seeker or job seeker. Don't write that. Take that out and put your actual position. And also with regards to messaging people on LinkedIn, just going to go straight to messaging people, which is very important. But on the ebook, I've also got all of this information on the ebook, which is just a 10 to 11 page. So when you're messaging people on LinkedIn, make sure you don't say hi. So don't just say hi. It's not Facebook. Don't say hi. Go straight to the point. Say, hi, Mawande. I saw the post that you had earlier on talent, and it really it was a great insight. You made a great insight on talent. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Just make it brief. And also, before you message someone, make sure you've looked at their timeline. Look at what they post about. So it's like a sales. It's like a sales. It's like you're doing sales. So before you message someone, always look at what they post about. Look at what they post about. Look at what they post about, so that you can just give them an information about what they were posting about, so that you would be drawing their attention. You'll definitely get their attention. And also, what you don't want to do is, you do not want to just send someone a CV. Don't just send someone a CV without writing something. Don't just send a CV. So don't just send a CV. First explain, or maybe say to them, you did see on their website that they had an accounting position available. Ask them, is that position still available? And then if they're saying, is it still available? Can I send you my email? Or who can I send my CV to? Who is the right person that I can send the CV to? So it's always very important to do that. And also when you're sending them a message, make sure it's just one paragraph. Okay, I think I just saw someone writing something. The questions couldn't get the question there.
Okay, so Timbegile's question has come up. And the question is, would you advise us to customize our CVs for each job post that is trying to match the words used in the adverts? How much does that help with your CV being identified with the ATS used? And what title would you advise I add on my CV and LinkedIn when I did my articles in audit, but looking for a finance/accounting job? So the question is basically twofold in terms of, one, should I customize my CV for each job post? And secondly, what title should I have if I'm currently in audit, but I'm looking for a finance or an accounting job?
Okay. So what I always advise is, with regards to, let's first go to the title. So with regards to title, right? Let's say, I'm just going to make an example. Let's say you are, okay, let's say, okay, I'll say talent, and then this is what you usually do just on the identifier. You're writing you are an auditor, even if you're not applying for an auditor role, even if maybe, for instance, you're applying for a financial manager role. So you're gonna write auditor, and then slash, you're gonna write financial manager, slash, you write also audit supervisor. So the reason why I always advise you to have more than one title, all the titles that you can work as, add them all. Because what you'll see is that, let's say, for instance, the recruiter has got a job spec also for an audit supervisor, just to make an example, but you only saw a position for a financial manager. So if that position has been filled, the financial manager position has been filled, but there is also this one which is still vacant, they can still take your CV and give you a ring. So don't just write one title under your name as an identifier. So I think that is very important. Just make sure you list at least more than one. That is obviously if you can do all of the jobs. And also in terms of customizing your CV for each role, yes, I would say yes, simply because I always say, when you're applying for jobs, always apply for at least 10 job posts a day, and make sure that for that 10 job post, you give yourself time. Even if it's 3 hours that you're setting aside, you know that you're definitely going to be customizing each role. And when you are doing the customization, it's actually, this is what sells you. When you're customizing your CV, this is the part that becomes important. So the core competency section, core competency. So this is where you will have your keywording. So you look at the job spec, you see maybe they're looking for someone who's going to be doing payroll processing. You're going to add that under core competency. They're looking for someone who's going to be doing accounts payable. You add that under core competencies. You make sure that you're looking at the job spec, you read it, and you see all of the important keywords, and then you add them under your core competencies. And that is also, obviously, if you know how to do that. If you can't do the payroll processing, don't put it under core competencies. Put the keywords that you can do also, and then you add it there. And also, obviously, using the language of that company, the language of that industry. Obviously, in finance, you want to have that lingo, so then the ATS system is able to then track your CV. It picks it up because of that. And to be honest, it doesn't take a lot of time. Could be 5 minutes. You look at the job spec, you look at all the keywords, and then you add them to your core competency. And remember, this is still on your first page. The recruiter looks at that. So it doesn't take a lot of your time. So customize each and every role.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Mawande. Unfortunately, in the interest of time, and I know this is a big topic and we can go on for quite a while, but I think with the ebook and as well as the template that you'll be sharing with us, there's a lot of information. And I think you also mentioned that it's okay if the guys link up with you on LinkedIn and look at your post and the information that you share, that it should be useful. I'd like for you to stick around till the end so that we can see if there aren't any more questions coming up. I think there might be one or two that we haven't addressed, but we have to move on, unfortunately or fortunately, to Bongumusa. So thank you very much, and we'll see you later for hopefully you can answer a few more questions for us as well. Thank you. And then Mr. Bongumusa Sangweni, welcome, and you may take over, please.
Right, how much time do I
have? So 20 minutes for the presentation.
Okay, cool. So I'll try to make it like 10 minutes core presentation, and then the other 10 minutes we'll have discussions. I hope that works for everybody.
Thank you, that's perfect.
Right, and you know, the nice part is that we have Mawande, who talks from a recruitment perspective. I am more from an internal, like recruiter, in terms of how do we see things. Definitely things that are key, that, you know, we look into. We are applying through a system-based platform. Like he said, you remove all the tabs. Whatever tabs that you might have put on the CV, you remove all of that, you remove any pictures. However, if you are applying directly to the likes of myself, like an internal recruiter, like you can send us stuff, you can send a picture and stuff like that. Anyway, we just focus on what is important on the CV and right in the CV, what is it, and experience. Okay. Right, I'll start by sharing a little bit of my background. Hopefully I won't take long. Grew up in a dusty street of Tembisa. Went to Wits for my varsity studies. I got kicked out for some other reasons. Then I went to TUT, and I'll tell you about my degrees on the following slide. Now I'm at UNISA. Right, so I'll tell you a little bit about the degrees that I have from an experience perspective. I have a degree in industrial relations and another one in human resource management. Currently, I'm doing an LLB, which will focus in employment law when I'm done. Okay, so let me just put a pointer here. Right, laser pointer. So what you see here, this is power station. I worked here for a period of about 2 to 3 years. Very interesting experience. At any given point, we have more than 20,000 employees on site, which was a great experience. And up here, I work for a company called Krones. What Krones was doing, they provide end-to-end machinery for bottling and packaging type of company, the likes of SAB, Heineken, and Distel, who are doing wines. And when I started my career, I worked for Tsehla University of Technology, which is a parastatal. And then I moved, obviously, through these companies. Now I'm at Cummins, and we do engines. A slightly high level shot, I have plus minus 10 years worth of HR experience in different fields, oil and gas, FMCG. I've worked for various roles under various capacity. I've spent some time in the US, for 3 months as part of an integration program. Like I said, I have 2 degrees in HR, which is industrial relations, and a degree in HRM. And now I'm doing a bachelor's of law, and the focus is around employment law. That's it about me, right? Cool, and we go into a good CV from an employer's perspective, right? And like I said, and I'm going to echo what Mawande said, is that when you're applying through a system-based platform, right? Meaning I'm getting a link, I apply through that, and I'm hoping on the mercy that they select me. So stuff like this, like the picture you don't put, and you don't necessarily put columns in your CV. You just make sure that the the right information is there, and you just strip out some of this fluffy stuff that you see there, the make me nice type of things. However, if you're applying directly, let's say I reach out to you, so me, the recruiter from Cummins, reach out to you from a LinkedIn-based platform, then you can submit the CV directly to me. I don't have an issue. But like Mawande said, there are certain salient points that we look into in any CV, right, to check whether the person is experienced or not. Fortunate enough, Nancy's on the call, so I picked on her CV, which is somewhat good. Most important, really, from a qualification perspective, this screams out. So immediately, I know what type of qualification she has. Location, where she's currently located, her, email address and contact details, right? So followed by that, what you'll see with people, they'll put a paragraph, which is a short, somewhat executive summary, right? Who they are, what is their background, type of roles they've done in the past, and what are they doing now. It's just a small paragraph. And after that, what I normally encourage people, it's not necessarily an industry standard, is that as HR folks, it's not our core business to spend time on a CV, just reading all kinds of things. So for me, immediately once I've looked at this information, I want to go into the experience, right? And I always encourage people, start with your recent experience, what you're doing now, right? And then just and go backwards. So, sometimes, when you're looking at here, it'll be saying current, and then it'll say all the, what is it, your current job title. Now, again, there's a question that has been posted to say, do I change my CV based on the role that I'm applying for? It is very much important, because on the system-based platform, the algorithms that are fed into the system, they are looking for key information. Now, if I'm advertising a role of an accountant, and then you are saying you're an auditor, the algorithm on the system is going to throw it out, because it doesn't recognize what we've advertised and what you put on the system. So it's very much important from a title perspective, if you're applying through a platform-based system, to make sure that you marry the advert the company has put on the job board, versus your CV. So those have to speak to each other, and number of years that you've been employed, and the responsibilities. Again, from a responsibility perspective, you need to check what is the job description that is on the job board, right? In terms of what is the skill they're looking for. And that needs to be reflected here in terms of your experience. Your first 10 bullet points to a degree need to marry what has been on the job description, right? And then you can say all the other stuff at the bottom, which is equally okay. One thing, because when you look up here, I've already seen your, your qualifications, then you can detail them at the end. Stuff like references and things like that, at the initial end, they are not important. However, after you've gone through the lines of interviews, then they become important. It's equally important for you to reference, but it's not necessarily important on a first instance. Yeah, okay. And then we go to interviews. So my guidance to people, we follow a 3-step process, right? I'm being invited for an interview. How should I be thinking through the process? You need to prepare. And when I say you need to prepare, you have a job description which has indicated what the company is looking for, right? And typically, people like myself from Line HR, we formulate questions based on the job description, right? There are other stuff which are your competencies and behavioral skills that we're looking for. They are part of the set of questions that we're definitely going to ask. But The competency ones are the ones that are reflected in the job description. And what do you do afterwards? You prepare, or you practice rather. And what does practice mean is I take a mirror, right? I sing to myself, right? So let's say in the job description, they talk about, financial analysts, right? So now I need to reflect back in terms of what have I done in my experience that talk through financial analyst. So I will narrate that to myself, right? I'll sing that to myself, right? So that it just follow a particular chronology. And then I'll talk through all the elements that are on the, job description, and then I present. So typically, when I advise people, just take a mirror, right? Present to yourself, right? And talk through it. Just talk through the motion of the interview and ask yourself question and present. Personally, what I do myself, if I'm going to an interview, I voice record myself, right? Look at what the job description is saying. Then I record myself over voice in terms of what would be my typical answer to that particular question. I hope I'm clear. But anyway, you can ask, questions later on. Right. Important stuff that you need to just look out for when you prepare is obviously your list of achievements, stuff that you've done, whether it's varsity or post-exit at school, or if you have a little bit of experience, what are the type of projects that you've done, right, that are top of your list, right? You review your paragraph statement in terms of your CV. You review that, formulate some questions in your head in terms of how you're going to land it during the interview process. What is important, and where I see a lot of people fail, is doing your research. You need to do your research about the company that you're applying for, right? Nancy's on the call. We are currently looking for an internal controls manager, right? I said in an interview where, for the bulk of the hour, we kept on asking a person questions, and the person kept on telling us about their general experience, and they did not research about the company, and we could not find any balance in terms of what they're saying versus what we're looking for, because much of what they experienced, they're articulating was very much general. It is important for you to research about the company and then formulate your answers in terms of what is the company doing. If the company is the FMCG type company, from an accounting perspective, there are certain things that will be reflected there, or so you need to channel your answers in that particular direction, right? An FMCG type of company is different than what we do at Cummins, right? It's different than a parastatal. So you need to have that reference in mind in terms of, I'm going to do my research, and as I answer my questions, I need to, in the back of my mind, take note that the type of company that I'm applying for does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need to marry the two. Right. So on the right, this is a job description, right? Typical description. So again, what you find there, some companies will put what is so-called competencies. So when they ask questions, they're going to formulate questions in relation to this, or key responsibilities. Like again, I talked about financial analysts, right? Depending on the role that you're applying for, the type of questions will be in and around this. So just bear that in mind. All right. Okay. So as part of your preparations, there are type of questions that you may, be thinking in the back of your mind. What are these guys going to be to be asking me, right? We ask behavioral type of questions, we ask technical questions, and we ask soft skills, right? One of the things that throw people off is, tell me about your strengths and weakness. I've sat in interviews for the past 10 years, and there are very few people who can really hit on both, right? You find a lot of people, they push their strengths forward, but they don't necessarily identify their weakness. To a degree, it means you are not self-aware, right? One of the things I know about myself, to a degree, I'm quite pedantic, and it's a weakness of myself. one of the things that I identify myself, I'm very, if I want something now, I want it now, right? I'm very self-conscious about that. When I'm being interviewed, I tell managers that, if I've sent you an email at 9, trust me, within 2 hours, I'm going to send you a follow-up to say, hey, how far are you with this? And if I don't send it via email, I'm definitely going to reach out via Skype. That's the type of individual that I am, right? And then if you are dealing with people who are not receptive to that particular behavior, it's good to tell your manager in an interview to say, hey, by the way, this is the type of personality that I am, right? So just bear in mind, when I send in emails, this is how my communication style is. And you just have that type of conversation. What is it in an interview? Right. Maybe let's say, you want to talk about things that you like, you don't like about work, you can talk about that. In terms of style of working and stuff like that, you can talk about that. And those are the type of questions they may ask in an interview. Right. So interview techniques and tips. Cool. What I've seen in the past is that when people are in interviews, they get extremely nervous. I don't know why. Like I don't know why. And I try, because I've been doing this for quite a while, I try to make people as comfortable as possible, because you get a lot out of a person who's less stressed. I normally offer tea, coffee, and if it's on Zoom, what I try to do is, crack some jokes, before we tee off the meeting, right? So the person can loosen up a little bit. The more they smile, I find, the more they tell me about themselves. They do a deep dive in terms of their experience, right? Interviews can be varied. What we do now, it's interviews over Zoom because of COVID-19, and that is the practice really for most companies now. And I think that practice is going to stay for a very, very long time. I think, having interviews on site, personally, I think it's a waste of time. And you print out a lot of paper, which is killing the environment. Rather do it on Zoom, right? You can see the face, you can see the body movement, right? And it just, and people don't spend money moving around. That's my personal view. Right. Types of interview. On first instance, once I've reached out to you on LinkedIn, we do what is called a screening interview, meaning I'll call you and then try to find out, look, I have this type of role. Are you interested? Are you in the market? Stuff like that. That's what we call screening interview. And then we have what is so-called group interview, where the manager and his or her peers sit on a panel where you have about 3 to 4 or 6 individuals who interview for a particular candidate. And those type of interviews, the manager is trying to balance their perspective versus what their peers are thinking. The other part is that managers, like any other individual, have their own biases which creep up into the process. Now, if you have peers, they can call out a particular behavior, right? If your affinity is towards Black female, right? And then when you are interviewing white female, you zone out and the quality of the questions. So your peers can say, hey, but Musa, you didn't ask this question in the right way when you're interviewing this individual. So my preference is always have a panel interview so that peers can call each other out if you are doing what is not necessarily required. Right. Behavioral type of interviews. This is the style of questions that we ask these days, right? So really, if there is a question in relation to a technical aspect, you are asking the individual in terms, can you narrate to me, how did you handle conflict as an example, right? While delivering an audit, right? Now you're conflicting either with a business or with a colleague. How did you handle that? What was the issue? What was the final outcome? So those are behavior type questions. And most companies like that a lot these days because they actually want to see how do you respond to different scenarios or circumstances. Audition type of interviews really, sometimes they can come and ask you to somewhat do a computer simulation, right? You come in, either if, we are looking for a PA, you just do some typewriting for like 10 minutes so that we see that you have the skill or not. If in the engineering days, we had a tool. When I was recruiting for engineering company, we had a tool where people come and do some assembly or work on an engine just to see if they have those type of competencies, right? And I would base our decision a lot in terms of whether they can do the actual work. Full day interview, it just depends. Sometimes you might find people are available on different times, so they must slot you on 3 or 4 hours in terms of interview, and might find different individuals coming in and interviewing you. Follow-up interview, we've done an interview as a panel, we think you're good, we want other leaders to see you, and then we'll do another interview. Right. Ooh, I'm so tired. Right. So a couple of things that you might just want to take note. This is how you move in between an interview. We're in COVID, so you can't do a handshake, but definitely as you come into the room, it would be good to introduce yourself, look at people level-headed, bring a second copy from a CV perspective, ask questions, right? Do not be afraid to ask questions. Leave in a good note, enjoy your day, have a great afternoon, stuff like that. Just shows that you're being polite. Again, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna stress this, research about the company. You cannot apply to Cummins if you don't research. Do your research about what the type of business we are before you come into the interview. There's nothing more that ticks off HR and line managers than a person in an interview who does not understand, the type of business or the core business, the company focuses. Right. Okay, so from how you look, my suggestion, and this is me, right? Please don't go to an interview wearing yellow or orange or green. Please don't do that, right? We have neutral colors, black and white, gray and white, navy blue and white, colors that are very, very much neutral, and neutral rather, right? You don't necessarily want to go to an interview and we can't necessarily focus on what you're saying. We are focused on how you're looking, right? So natural colors do actually help. Anyway, I'm going to send this to you and you can read for yourself. Again, from a practice perspective, if you can do it, look at yourself in the mirror, take a video, ask yourself questions and do some answers, right? Again, I'm going to send this stuff. What is important, when answering a particular question, if you don't understand, ask again. There's nothing as a missed opportunity in not answering what has been asked, right? You need to understand the question so that, when you provide a response, right, you can take them through a real life scenario or a situation that happened to you that you can narrate, right? And say, hey, this is what happened to me. This was the situation. From a task perspective, this is the stuff that I had to do. From an action perspective, this is the type of stuff that I had to provide. These are the people that I had to speak to. I had to put a project tracker. This is what I had to do. At the end of the day, this is the result that was achieved. So it's important for you to show that particular dynamic. Again, it becomes a missed opportunity if you don't answer the question that is being asked. If you don't understand, say again, hi guys, I didn't get your question. Can you please just reiterate it for me? And again, please don't lie because we can catch you out. Siabaz, we know people are lying to us during an interview, right? So if you don't know something, just say, look, I don't have that experience, but what I can do, I can take you through what I did at varsity, which will be a textbook form of an answer, right? And then they understand and they accept what you're telling them rather than spend, 10 minutes trying to answer something that you don't know and, possibly lie while doing that. Yeah. Right. Again, I think maybe just part of closing what I wanted to say to allude here during the interview. Before you enter the meeting room, just make sure your phone is switched off. Just make sure it's a it's a big no for your phone to be ringing. Right. Again, the forum is conducted with respect, and people appreciate and respect people that are there. It is important that your values as an individual come out as you are answering all those questions. Again, for you to show that you have experience of something that has happened, it's important that you narrate a real life work situation to say, okay, you are now talking about conflict. I remember in this particular project, I asked Musa for a file. He took his time, right? And then I had to go to, hey, I need this file for the following reasons. Can we please align in terms of, how can we get this file, right? So now you're responding from a situation. If you are fresh, fresh entrance in a work situation, you can speak about stuff that happened, maybe, from a group you were supposed to deliver an assignment and stuff like that. You can always reference that. Tips, always be on time. That's point number one. If you cannot make it on time, call in advance. Just call in advance and say, hey, I'm this particular area, there's quite a lot of traffic. I don't think I'm gonna make it. Or I have a burst tire. My car is giving me problems. I don't think I'm gonna make it, right? Do not leave for the last minute and then you call. If you are having an emergency, just call well in advance to say, hey, I'm really having a tough situation. This is what's happening. I can't make it for the interview, right? Dressing appropriately is very much important. Look people at really eye level, right? It's important that you look at people eye level. If, from an African culture, you are, you can't do that. Look above their head because when they're sitting opposite of the table, it's as if or you are looking at them. So just try and look at people around the room and always tilt your head from left to right as you are responding, because people need to somewhat feel like you are not addressing a particular individual, but you are addressing the entire room, right? Unfortunately, due to COVID, you can't shake hands, but you can definitely, express your point. Be positive. Have just enjoy the time while you're in an interview. Really, that's what I do. I think here, the most important is be very much factual. If you don't know anything, please don't even attempt. If you don't know, just be very clear to say, I've never dealt with this situation. I can maybe try and respond, if without having that experience. This is my take on it from a textbook perspective, but do not lie, right? Your arms age now, just try a little bit to not to use during the process. Body language is important, really. You are as confident as other people can see you. So whether they are looking at you from Zoom or whether you're appearing in person, your shoulders need to be showed, you are there, you want the job, you are confident. Again, over confidence and being cocky, it's a bit of a no-no. Please always have this in the back of your mind. Most of the people that are interviewing you are coming from an old school thought in terms of doing interviews. They are not millennials, right? When I sit and interviewing a millennial, when they start becoming cocky, I accept it. I live with a lot of millennials. It's okay, but the older generations are not as acceptable. So again, coming to that table, gauge who are there, the individuals in the room, and apply yourself accordingly, depending on what you see. Most important, have a positive attitude. Be honest. Ask clarifying questions. That's very, very, very much important. And again, your pitch of your voice. Whether you're on Zoom or in a room, if the room is big, just make sure that you're audible, that people can hear you. When you're on Zoom, just make sure the quality of the network that you are in is very much clear. You can sit in an internet cafe if the quality of the network then is good, so that there are no breaks and people can hear you when you speak. Right, I'm done. Okay, Q&A. Any questions?
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Bongumusa. Just checking on the chat. I don't know if people are nervous or they are genuinely scared of interviews, but there aren't any questions for now. We are running a bit behind on time, but I think I'm just going to be a bit lenient because it's such an important topic and there's so many things that you can touch, and there are some aspects that we haven't even touched on when it comes to CVs and the interview process, etc. So I'm not going to be too hard on us in terms of time. I think we've covered a lot, and a lot of the stuff that has been shared is actually insightful. So I'd just like to encourage our participants to keep typing questions, and then we'll look at questions at the end. But we just want to finish up with our formal presentations. Bongumusa, if you could stop sharing. And then I'm going to unmute Ntsabadi. Hope I'll be able to unmute. Zia, you still here? Can you unmute Ntsabadi? Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, Ntsabadi is here to talk to us about the SAICA social media policy, the do's and don'ts, things that we need to look out for. So please, if you have any questions for him, please type them on the chat. I know that we had promised to end at 7:30, so if you have somewhere to be, have something to do, we'll understand, but it would be nice if everyone can stay till the end and we can take a few questions. The recording will be available as well, but only at the end of the series, so after we've had our session 3 and 4. So Ntsabadi.
All right, hi everyone. So let me try and share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
I'll start off with a brief intro about myself. So I'm Ntsabadi and I'm a recently qualified CA. I qualified end of last year and I did my secondment from November till February this year. And then I went back to my training office due to COVID. I stayed there for a couple of months. I think I only started applying in May, end of May or so. And then I got the role at SAICA. So I started at SAICA last month. So I'm pretty much new at SAICA as well. And with me, my process worked like similar to what they were explaining here. So I was approached by a recruiter, and then the recruiter came back to me, basically explained what the role is, how it works. And then we had like a small interview. And then afterwards we had the proper interview with the management at SAICA. So that's pretty much a brief background on myself. So basically, I'll take you through what SAICA says and what SAICA says you can do and what SAICA says you cannot do. So in terms of social media, so it's a broad definition. So we're looking at everything from blogs to vlogs to YouTube, any like what you call like any Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, even LinkedIn, Twitter. Basically, it's a long list of platforms which are considered to be social media. So it's just things which you need to keep at the back of your mind when you're busy interacting on these platforms. Then let me go. So with SAICA doesn't explicitly stop you from using social media. So it doesn't tell you, you cannot use Twitter, you cannot use Instagram, you cannot use YouTube. It allows you the opportunity to use such platforms. But then what it tries to do, it tries to basically maintain the reputation of SAICA. So the whole profession, we don't want anyone to bring it into disrepute. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make sure that everyone still behaves professionally, ethically, whether you have SAICA as a designation on your Facebook, your Instagram, or you don't have it on your social media platform. At the end of the day, you're still part of SAICA. Even when you're doing your contract, although you're not a CASA, you're affiliated to SAICA, you're doing a training contract, you're moving towards becoming CASA. So it's very, very important for you to think about it that way. Don't just think, no, I'm not a CASA yet. I've got the freedom in the world. I can do whatever I want to do. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. So there's a couple of principles which everyone needs to take into account. So whatever I say online, it basically reflects on SAICA. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you don't have any affiliation to SAICA, you don't have your what you call your, like you don't have your employment details on your, let's work with Twitter. You don't have anything on Twitter which says who you are, who you work for. But the issue comes in, let's say you retweeting something which is very offensive or it's hate speech. The issue becomes when someone does the research. Someone can basically take your name and go and Google it on link or on YouTube, and then your LinkedIn profile pops up. Then when you're LinkedIn, you've got all your details. You're saying you're an auditor, you're working for this company, and you basically studying towards CASA. And most trainees I know, like as soon as they, for example, when they pass APC, they immediately want to write on their platforms that know they've finished their board exams, and then as soon as they get signed off, they already write eligible to register as CASA. So that's the main problem, because someone can make that link. They can go from your post, which has got nothing to do with SAICA. There's no relation to SAICA, no relation to who you're working for, but then they can go and make that link, and then it can turn into a whole big deal where now it brings the profession into disrepute. Now it's a matter of SAICA this, SAICA that, and this is what CAs do. So that's the main thing that we're trying to prevent, to say whether you're affiliated with SAICA or not on your social media, it doesn't give you the freedom to go and do whatever you want to do. So yeah, so when you look at let's say point 3, it says like it's your duty to act in good faith towards SAICA. So as part of SAICA, you in the SAICA training program, UICASA, it is your responsibility, it's your duty to act in good faith towards SAICA. You're supposed to represent SAICA and basically maintain that standard at all times. Then going forward, oh yeah, and then the important thing is publish. So once you put something out there to the public, it's noted as being published, and then once it's published, it means someone can sue you for what you're saying, and then it can just cause a whole lot of issues when now it's in the public platform. And one of the examples which people don't think about is WhatsApp. So when you're on WhatsApp, if you send in someone like your friend, let's say it's just you directly to your friend, it's not really regarded as published because it's just one person. But then the moment you're in a WhatsApp group where there's other people in that WhatsApp group, if you share something or post something which is very offensive, it's regarded as published. And then once it's meet that criteria of published, you can get, like, someone can sue you. There can be legal action against you. So it's just to be careful. Just be careful with regards to WhatsApp as well. And then it's important to remember, like, once it's out there, it's out there. Like, literally, if it's something that you posted 10 years ago, 5 years ago, for example, with the Miss SA contestant, she posted like a couple of years ago, a long time ago, but then now it's popping up. So it's things like that where once it's out there, it's out there. You cannot come back and say, oops, I was 15 years old, I didn't know what I was doing. It's out there, and you can easily lose your designation if it's something which is very, very, it's fundamentally wrong, and it breaks so many ethical issues. SAICA can take you to the PCC, which is the Professional Code of Conduct Committee. So you can be taken to that committee, and then you can literally use a designation, or they can prevent you from finishing your training contract. So it's very important to think about that. And remember, social media, there's no context, there's no tone. No one can see if it's really a joke. If you're joking, no one can see it. People are just looking at your words, your pictures. So it's one of the things to remember. Before you post, think about it. Think about it, take a walk and think, do I really, really want to post this? If your answer is no, then definitely don't do it. And like with the 4th point here, you do have your freedom of expression, but just remember not to infringe on anyone's rights. That's where it becomes problematic. So you're not supposed to infringe on anyone. You can say what you want to say, but also remember your platform. If you want to complain about a service like which was not conducted properly, you can go to Hello Peter. You can go to so many different platforms. You don't always have to do things on Twitter. So when you do things on Twitter, remember it has to be factual. It has to be something which can be backed up with facts, be seen as hate speech, and remember, the other person can sue you if it's hate speech or they're saying that you're basically damaging their reputation. They can sue you, and then it's going to bring psych as well into the whole discussion. So we're trying to avoid all of that. So it's rather take it through the correct route and complain on a different platform instead of Twitter. Then just to carry on with the key principles. Yeah, so basically, so like this social media code of conduct, like your communication on social media, it's not different to what you do when you're offline. So you can't just act differently when you're offline, and then when you're social media, you're a whole different person. You have to use the same principle, you use the same professional code of conduct. You're supposed to be ethical at all times, supposed to have integrity. So think about it that way. You're still the same person, whether you're online or you're offline. So treat it as one thing. So that's the important thing to remember. And this one talks to airing your grievances. Like I was saying, like find a proper platform to do it. Don't just rush to Twitter, because that might come back to bite you in a couple years' time. And yeah, you shouldn't share your private information or intellectual property on social media. This is pretty much, it pretty much also speaks to confidentiality. You need to maintain confidentiality, and any private information should be kept off social media. It's supposed to be private. And the other important thing to consider is your privacy settings. So in your privacy settings, for example, if you're on Instagram, you can choose that only your friends or your followers can view your post. So you can do that, yes, but then also take into account that someone can take a screenshot of your post. So you need to be careful of who you keep around you as well. And you also need to think, although it's private, you cannot just go and post whatever you want to post, anything unethical. Just remember, someone can take a screenshot. And the other thing is that your employers as well, they can always ask you for your social media details. So you just need to remember, think about it that way, to say, okay, my future employer, with myself as an example, when I applied to Saika, they did ask me for my social media details. They asked me for my Twitter, my Facebook. I forgot what else they asked me. I think it was LinkedIn, but they already had me on LinkedIn. So even if things are private, they can always ask you to open up your settings so they can see what's your profile. So just because the profile is private doesn't give you the freedom to just go and do whatever you want to do. And yeah, then this one carries on, like you shouldn't violate the privacy of SAICA, other SAICA members or other organization, clients or colleagues. So you shouldn't violate anyone's privacy. It's just a matter of maintaining your maintaining your ethical self, and remembering, like, you're not supposed to infringe on anyone's rights. You're just supposed to be living with people and living in peace. So it's very important to remember that. Then yeah, you need to respect your laws and the rights of others, as what you call, as you all know. So for example, you cannot discriminate, you cannot be racist, sexist, insulting, and you cannot harass anyone on social media. It's still the same rules, the same code of conduct for all CAs. And yeah, retweeting, sharing, or liking, it's very important. When you're retweeting, sharing, or liking something, you pretty much as guilty as the person who posted it in the first place. So it's very important to think before you like anything. And if someone tags you in a post which is very offensive, it infringes on someone's rights, you're supposed to basically remove yourself from that post. Excuse me. You're supposed to remove yourself from that post, because if you remain silent about it, in essence, you are approving of it. Your silence implies that you are approving of it. So you just need to make sure, if anything dodgy comes up, remove yourself immediately. Don't retweet anything, don't share anything, don't like anything if it's not proper. Yeah, so that's very, very important, because even currently nowadays, there's a lot of cases which are going around with regards to social media conduct. So for example, with my role, I also work with approvals of for example, when someone cancels a training contract on TCMS, I'm also involved in that. So there's a lot of code of conduct issues going around. So it's you need to be careful, because once you act unethically, your training office can go and cancel your training contract, and they are within their rights. If they can show that, no, you acted unethical on social media, they can immediately go and initiate the disciplinary process. And yeah, you shouldn't speak on SAICA's behalf. You as an individual, you should have your own opinions. You shouldn't speak as if you're speaking on behalf of SAICA. There are SAICA people who are in charge of running the social media accounts, who are in charge of speaking on behalf of SAICA. So you as a trainee, you're not allowed definitely to speak on behalf of SAICA. And yeah, you shouldn't use the SAICA identity. You shouldn't misuse it. For example, here's an example. You can say at John at SAICA or Joe blogs, whatever, a SAICA insider. You cannot use such platforms unless if you explicitly got the approval from SAICA. You cannot go about just doing your own thing. And yeah, you can't speak. So with the last point here, it says you cannot speak negatively about your competitors or any other SAICA member. That's pretty much what everyone knows. And it should be in most companies' code of conduct, where you're not allowed to speak negatively about your competitors or other SAICA members. Then yeah, be transparent at all times, be honest. And even if you're not affiliated with SAICA, you need to be transparent. As yeah, like I always said, like they can always link you to SAICA, so you always have to be truthful, avoid misrepresentation. And yeah, so this is pretty much so with this SAICA code of conduct, it's available on the SAICA website, so anyone can find it. So if you need to go into detail to find more things, you can always go onto the website and you'll find this code of conduct. And those are pretty much the main points which I wanted to bring to your attention. And like I was saying, so the SAICA can always come back to you if someone brings up a complaint against you. SAICA can always take you to the professional conduct committee, and there can be repercussions for your actions. So always be mindful of your actions and know you need to be a SAICA representative at all times. You cannot just go around and do whatever you want to do. It's a big responsibility being part of SAICA, the SAICA training program, SEASA. It's a big responsibility. So we just want everyone to be mindful of that at all times. And that's pretty much it from my side.
Thank you so much, Ntsabadi. Wow, that was quite insightful, and I guess it is important that one goes and reads the SAICA social media policy, especially if you know that you do have an online presence, and just to be aware of what it is that you can't do or can do. But I think at the end of the day, it's something that's we've taught in varsity. I mean, we all do some sort of ethics course, and we've taught about the code of professional conduct. And if obviously your behavior is aligned to the professional conduct code, then you shouldn't worry too much, but just to know and be aware of those things, because obviously sometimes there are blurred lines when it comes to ethical issues. So rather read and empower yourself with that knowledge. And like you said, when you are typing or a tweet or see something and you want to retweet, just ask yourself, do I really want to? So on that note, I'm just going to take questions. So I'll take questions for you, Ntsabadi, and then we'll go back to the CV and interview questions. I know that time is tight, so if we can please keep our answers short and concise. So there's a question from Babalo saying, so in essence, you're affiliated with SAICA, and they can discipline you even if you don't have CASA on your social media bio.
Yeah, definitely, because someone can make that link. As long as they've got your name and surname, someone can make that connection. So that's in short, the answer is yes. You can get taken to disciplinary.
Okay, great. So that's the only SAICA social media policy question that came up. I'd like to go back to Mawande. Is Mawande still here? And Bongumusa, if you can just, thank you so much, Ntsabadi.
Thank you for the platform.
Okay. Z, can you please unmute Bongumusa? And I'm not sure if Mawande is still with us. Maybe we can just spend 5 more minutes and then we can wrap up. Okay, Bongumusa, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Cool.
So we have a question here. I think there was a question saying, if you're a student fresh out of varsity, this is from Jessica, if you're a student fresh out of varsity, what should you write? So I think this is on your CV and your executive summary, etc. So what would you expect to see from someone who's fresh out of varsity?
Very interesting question. Again, if you recall from what Mawande had presented, if you are applying on a platform, meaning that there's a link, you are sending a CV, somebody's going to evaluate it, no photos, and then you shouldn't put any blocks there because the system just does an somewhat a simulation and it can kick out your CV. Just make it as blended as possible, as long as there's correct information like your qualification that you are busy with, your matric, what were the results that you've received in matric, if there's anything special that you've done in matric, or if there's anything that special that you've done at varsity. Those are the important things that you need to highlight, right? Some companies do like to see, people who are leaders, right? Like, they've done debating, they've done stuff like that. So they would like to see those, nuances on the CV. It helps, especially if you are a new person who doesn't have experience. So it's good that, you can take initiative and stuff like that. Again, if you're very new from an experience perspective, it's matric, your qualifications, type of projects that you did at varsity, and any sports and stuff like that. That is important, right? It just shows a different blend in terms of interesting stuff that you've done. I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question asked, I think this was for Mawande, but I'm sure you can also just weigh in here. Please touch on whether to use agents or not when we get to the, please touch on whether to use agents or not.
When you say agents or not, so
Like
you're
recruitment
applying
agents.
through agencies? Yes, of course. You can always use a recruitment agency. And sometimes recruitment agents actually go directly to candidates, right? And, solicit CVs and stuff like that. For a company like Cummins, we have internal recruiters who their job really is to, look at people on LinkedIn and see if they have the relevant skill for the job that we've advertised. So if you can use an agency, really, please by all means do that. They somewhat know the criteria that we are looking for, and they can polish your CV in terms of what is the stuff that we are looking for. So agencies are the best. Unfortunately, not all organizations use agencies. So for those that don't, you'll deal directly with a company representative like myself in the case of Cummins.
Okay, great, thank you. And I think one more question is, how do you assess corporate culture from an interview?
I think from an interview, it's a touch and go, in the sense that you can misread a situation, right? You can misread certain individuals in the room. So what is important before you go to an interview is actually go into the website of the company and look at their values system, look at what they do, what is the type of company, and in the interview itself, just make your own judgment in terms of, all right, what type of company is this, right? Are they millennials that are sitting on the interview panel, or it's older people. Like I said, with older people, you need to have somewhat of a balance in terms of how you are approaching things. The overconfidence type of things, it to a degree, it just irritates them a little bit. They want people who have the right set of values, the right type of skills linked to the job. And with millennials, if you find millennials in the interview panel, they like people who are out there. So really, it's a touch and go. If you can get all the information from the company website, then use that and sell that in an interview. I hope that it answers your question. Really, I think it's important for you to judge a situation when you are in the room, right? To not just just take things for granted. Situation, read the individuals in the room. If you're on Zoom, just read the person who's start asking questions in terms of what type of individuals they're looking for. And again, either in the beginning of the interview or at the end of the interview, you can ask, what is a company culture, right? How do you operate in this company? And they can tell you. But if you ask it initially when the interview starts, you can you can tailor your answers in the type of organization it is. If you ask this question at the end, it may not necessarily help you because they've somewhat assessed if you have the competency and the personality for the organization. So it's a type of question I would ask at the front end to say, hey, what is the organization culture here?
Mm.
Right. So that every question you are responding to, you have that in the back of your mind.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I think our last question, which is also just a follow-up to the previous question, is when researching a company in preparation for an interview, what are the key areas to research? So what do you specifically go out and look for?
Right. Most companies have a website, so you can go to the website, and then where it says HR, they're normally, they'll push out a company statement. What is it they do? And then they'll talk about values, right? They'll talk about their vision, their mission, what they do, and you need to focus that and hone in. If they have like special things that they do, right? Like your EE or social initiatives that they do, focus on that as well, right? You can bring that in the interview. So those are the type of things that you need to pick up when you go through the interview. It'll tell you a lot about the culture. It'll tell you about the organization, right? I hope it answers the question.
I think so, and I hope Babalo is satisfied with the answer. So thank you very much, Bongumusa, and thank you so much to everyone, our speakers, and Ntsabadi, and also Mawande. I think he's left, but he's promised us some stuff, and Bongumusa has also promised to share his slides with us, and I think there's some valuable information in there. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us for an extra 17 minutes. I know that there was a lot of content that was shared and it was very insightful. And don't forget to connect with us and ask us any questions, should you have any. Like I mentioned earlier, this was part 2 of a 4 series event. So next week we'll have our more industry and career focused sessions, with the first session being on Tuesday, where we'll have academia, technical accountant, corporate accountants, so guys who are in those careers that are actually working there to share their journey and what it is that they do. And then on Thursday, we'll have someone from the public sector and as well as the investment bankers to come and share their experiences as well. So if you haven't signed up for those sessions, please do. And also the recordings will be made available at the end of the session. So please expect an email from us, sorry. And if there aren't any more questions, I'd like to close off the session. Thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy your Thursday evening. So how do I save the chat? Save chat.